All right, it's 2 minutes after. I will get started. So thank you everyone for joining. I know some of you are still joining, and for those who are going to ask this question, I'll just say it right now. We are going to provide the recording as well as the slides, and we try to capture any questions that you guys put in the Q&A and the answers into a Notion document that we share publicly. So all this information will be available after the call, probably by tomorrow, I would say. It takes a little while to put it all together. Um, so the webinar today, Weaponized AI, investigating how AI is changing threat actors' behavior. I'm joined by Dave Johnson. Dave is a senior threat intel advisor at Feedly, and Dave has a unique background that positions him well to talk about, investigations and stuff. So, Dave, before we get started, you want to just introduce yourself a little bit?
Sure. Yep. My name's Dave. I was a former Feedly customer over 2 years ago, and I've been in CTI for about 15 years. Half of my career was with the FBI. Worked primarily cyber crimes, some nation state stuff. But yeah, just kind of seeing how things changed since I left. Really, it's a lot of the same stuff, but with a new twist. So excited to talk about this.
Awesome. So Dave, we hear a lot about uh, stress and people getting kind of overloaded and workplace stress. So when you think about not just cybersecurity, but just in your own life, the finish the sentence question that I first asked of you is the thing I do to relieve my stress is.
Ooh, uh, I like kickboxing. It's a lot of fun. Um, I don't get hit, but I usually just hit a bag that doesn't hit back, but it feels
That's
pretty good.
that's a little safer. Yeah, when they're not back, that's good. I like that. I exercise personally. I kind of alternate running and weightlifting. So that's my stress relief. My wife always says if I haven't got a workout in, I'm extra stressed, and that's probably true.
Hmm.
All right, and then the next finish the sentence question here is the thing I like most about preparing for this webinar is.
Actually, just learning the topic a little bit more. I got to pick. Shawn was like, "What do you want to talk about for this webinar?" And I'm thinking, "Oh yeah, weaponized AI would be pretty cool. I want to learn more about that." So then, getting to kind of use the cool research tools that are available now, especially in Feedly, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I enjoyed a little bit of prep similarly for this webinar, reading some reports, kind of understanding what's happening out there. So for me, it was new knowledge. So that was fun. I'm expecting to learn more here from this webinar. As always, before we get started, I would like to just give a quick advert for Feedly. If you're not familiar with Feedly, Feedly is Feedly Threat Intelligence, that is a it's an amazing solution. It helps you, it pulls in millions of sources, things like government advisories or security blogs, a vulnerability database, pulls in all that information into Feedly. And then within Feedly, it collects that information, it tags it, it links it together, so relationships, and then it filters it out in a way that allows you to find the actionable intelligence that's most important to your priority intelligence requirements. And we surface that information in dashboards and insights cards. Insights cards are a 360-degree view of everything that's related to a particular topic, like a cyber attack or a threat actor or CVE card. So we do that for every CVE. And then there's also personalized news feeds. So you basically filter down all the information to the things that are most relevant to you. We have something called Ask AI, which allows you to interrogate the articles to really ask something that is maybe not typical. So kind of like how you ask your ChatGPT prompts, but now you're asking it about the articles that you've specifically selected, and it's been trained on CTI data, so it gives you responses that are more likely to be relevant to your data. And then the next is we can send that information out through newsletters or reports. You can also connect stuff into your your SIM, your tip, your SOAR, etc. And all this information is available through a Stix API. So we're not going to talk about a lot of these features today, but I did want to mention all this and allow you and tell you one more time that you are able to get a quick 7-day preview of what this product looks like. I realize it's only 7 days, but if you reach out to sales to extend your trial, they can extend it for 30 days and give you full access to all the features. So it's a good way to get a quick look and to get started. So with that said, let's get into the topic. And one thing I often do here is I go a little too far to the lower left-hand corner. Okay, I've got a poll question. Let me just surface it in the app so that you guys see it here. So the first question I'm going to ask here. So go ahead and just put in your answer. We'll get a couple seconds to answer it.
Man, I wish I could vote.
Okay, sharing the results here. So 39% very concerned, 44% somewhat concerned, some neutral, some not concerned. So what is it? About 14% have kind of neutral or not concerned. If I just go back here to this data, I saw this in sorry. This was in a report by one of the CrowdStrike reports that 73% of IT decision makers are worried about this, about nation state actors using AI to develop more sophisticated targeted cyber attacks. That's up from 45% a year ago. So a significant increase there. So if you're working with a lot of these IT decision makers, you know who they are. They're concerned. So I guess it makes sense that you guys would start to be concerned. All right, so I've got one more poll coming here. Sorry, I have to launch this. It means I go to another screen, I find another thing. So the last one here, and this is kind of important. So here, what types of weaponized AI are you most interested in learning about today? And this will help drive some of the things that we show today. Sorry, I had a device in the background that was just updating and making noise the whole time.
The demo gods.
Yeah, demo gods. It's AI looking in on me. It literally was an Amazon Alexa device.
That's the biggest threat.
Okay, I'm gonna end the poll. I'm gonna share the results here. So
Nice.
it looks like we have AI-powered malware and autonomous exploitation of 44%. That's number one, followed by AI-generated phishing and social engineering. Okay, those two make sense. Deepfakes, number three, and AI use and misinformation, number four, followed by AI-driven reconnaissance and tagging or targeting. Okay, those are really good. I'm going to screenshot this one for myself. And Dave, when you go through
Sure.
this, remember AI-powered malware and autonomous exploitation was the highest one.
Got it.
All right, so stop sharing and let's go back to the deck real quickly. All right, Dave, do you want to take control or do you want
I will take control because I like control. I don't want
to?
it. I don't trust you. It could be an AI. You don't know. Let me take control. Let's see here. Yeah.
Before I forget, and I should have announced this earlier, if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A and we'll try to address them in real time if we can. And if not, we'll post the answers later. So please ask your question. And as we go along, we'll find some stuff out that hopefully will spark new questions. So go ahead.
Sweet. I do have an update notification for my browser. So ignore that. I'm usually really good about it. I'm a cybersecurity guy, but yeah, I haven't updated my browser in a little bit. Um, anyway, so that brings us to this slide, and the poll question is like super great context because I feel like the way AI weaponization is portrayed in the media doesn't really mirror what's actually happening in reality. I saw another report where I think we saw that statement that 73% of IT decision makers are worried about nation states using AI. There's always a lot of worry about APT groups in general. But regarding AI especially, it's definitely a buzzword. It's in marketing. Sorry, Shawn. It's in every single product out there that touches tech, basically. And what I found interesting was that when you look at what security analysts, actually day-to-day analysts, what they're saying is it's about 15 to 20% are actually really concerned because I think analysts are generally skeptical, which they should be. So just a little bit of a, misperception maybe in how the media is focusing on AI threats. So I just want to have that as context as we go into this, because when I tried to do this research, I really tried to cut down on the theoretical attacks and focus on the real life examples. And so that brings us to this timeline. I thought this was pretty interesting. So the biggest things I've seen were that there's not a lot of autonomous use of AI to carry on post-exploit work. It's more of left of the boom activity. You're talking about reconnaissance, scanning activity, phishing, all that kind of stuff is becoming more scalable and more personalized. And so I think that's really the big difference. And in being in CTI for 15 years or so, when there's like a technology shift, usually like the criminal stuff kind of gets carried out first, gets more advanced, gets scaled up more. I saw that with like exploit kits and phishing kits that got commoditized. Same thing is happening with AI to some extent. So that's just a little bit more context. Regarding this timeline, some really interesting things emerged. We've got AkiraBot, which is a Python tool that is used to basically seed sites to fill out forms, things like that. It's very automated. We're seeing those capabilities to target basically mass spam, lots of different sites for kind of dubious SEO optimization attacks and that type of thing. Something that I think just got captured in the news recently was the evidence that North Koreans were using deepfakes in tech interviews. Like there's more details that came out recently, but they use basically fake firms that they create in order to give themselves really good pretext and become believable. And they try to get into either tech firms or crypto firms in order to potentially even introduce malware during the tech interview. So they actually deepfake themselves looking like someone else in live on a live camera. And then when they're submitting code or interacting with the interviewer, they actually try to submit malware directly to the interviewer. And they're just trying to really gain access to the company itself, trying to get crypto wallet keys, largely as financial theft, that type of thing. And yeah, it's really interesting. So deepfake stuff is not really on the top of everyone's list here, but it's definitely making some noise. And that stuff really wasn't possible like a year ago. Fuzzy AI jailbreaking tool, that's an interesting open source tool. I think CyberArk came up with that one. And what that allows you to do is kind of test the security of different commercial LLMs. So looking at the guardrails that they have in order to see if you can jailbreak them. So these things are becoming available. So more and more people can potentially abuse commercial LLMs, even though that there's ethical protections built in. One surprising example of another deepfake thing happened in January this year. or at least it was reported, that there was I think it's either a CFO or a CSO was impersonated in order to basically steal $20 million from a Hong Kong firm, using a deepfake technology. So it's definitely like the criminals are making use of this right away. And social engineering is really skyrocketed. That's the real big threat right now, and not so much the autonomous malware stuff. So I'm
Yeah,
gonna
I thought this one was really interesting, Dave. They basically faked a video on Zoom calls with other people also present on the Zoom call, so some real, some fake, to
uh,
to look like the CFO saying that this is the right account number to send the money, and it turned out it was not the right account number. So, yeah.
Yeah, so the case we're seeing is believing is not true. So I think Brian Krebs reported, many years ago, like you really have to verify first. You never click, you never open things that are sent to you. You always seek it out first. So those same protections apply to everything. You can't really trust what you see too, even if it's like a live camera feed. You know that the deepfake technology is out there. So there's different technologies that kind of detect this stuff, but it's not super common to detect these types of things. Just to wrap up this slide, another really interesting tool is the Dracula phishing-as-a-service platform. So that's something that came out last year, beginning of last year, and it just recently got AI integration capabilities. And so what this allows you to do is take a link to any kind of site that you want to clone, and it will make a near perfect clone of that site and even translate it in real time based on where you're serving that site. So it's really sophisticated, and it uses AI as part of its capabilities in order to make it super personalized. And the thing that this does is it makes it really hard to detect certain templates for phishing campaigns. Templates were kind of what you used. You looked at certain signatures or certain patterns in the templates in order to detect these things. And now it's really hard because this is super dynamic. So that's something that is actually probably more of a real threat rather than the autonomous malware going and hacking stuff right now. And then we've seen an instance where a researcher developed a proof of concept exploit code for an SSH vulnerability. We'll cover that a little bit later. And then probably my favorite one, which will be kind of featured in, I think, the next slide, will be the Xanthorox AI hacking tool.
Dave, kind of a general question off the Q&A was,
Yeah.
with all the AI focus, would you say AI has always been there since the beginning of computing ages, like in over the last 25 years or 35 years, but never really talked about, or maybe the technology
Yeah.
was never fully utilized until
Yeah.
now?
Yeah, I think so. Theoretically, the math behind it and the theory has been there since I think the 50s or 60s. So it's just been recently where compute power has really caught up to capabilities, or to allow us to really explore those types of things. Commercial GPUs, cloud hosted powerful GPUs that are used by Google or Amazon. Those are easy to access now. You can even hack access to some of these things. So you have on hand tons of compute power in order to run these models. Training models too was super expensive. It takes millions of dollars. So like the capability and the knowledge has been there, but we just recently, probably in the past 10 years or so, have really been able to do something with it. Cool.
Yeah,
Good
I
question.
think we moved a little bit, like also in the last several years, from just algorithms that, are applying rules essentially to some actual learning, to actually adapting based on, things that it sees, or patterns in the English language in the sense of LLMs, to create better stuff. And I think when you look at the results, and we'll come up with some stats later that show you like it's more effective, it's actually more effective than a lot of the human written stuff.
Mhm. Yeah, that's interesting. I'll jump ahead real quick. there is something called the Joker agent that is used, I think, developed by Hawks Hunt, and it creates phishing attacks. And at first, it was worse than humans, and then a few months later, it was on par, and then now it's actually is more effective than dedicated red teams at creating phishing emails. So it's just, kind of crazy how even in a short span of time, the same capability with LLMs kind of can change. But I don't know about you, like AI news is like super busy. There's lots of noise out there. So we'll get into some strategies using Feedly in order to kind of cut down on that stuff. But I just want to continue with the sort of the briefing here. So there's different types of AI weaponization. A lot of what people, and I anticipate correctly, are afraid of is like malware development, autonomous agents going out and hacking stuff. And we're really not seeing that so much. Really interesting. The thing I think is really the closest and most accessible is called Xanthorox AI. And actually, they have their own website and they have, I think, their own YouTube channel, which I was able to find this video for. It kind of demonstrates how they used it to create ransomware in C++.
Don't
So
click on anything, Dave. Oh, here we go.
So it's just like a quick thing. It looks a lot like the chat interfaces we're used to with ChatGPT and Claude. I think this is kind of hilarious because this will actually, put in disclaimers for educational purposes, but then it's also showing how it bypasses Windows Defender. Um, One grain of salt, though, or maybe two, is that whenever you see advertisements from dark web or things like this that claim these capabilities, a lot of the times they're lying to you in order to try to make a quick buck. But I really haven't seen anything that totally refutes this tool yet. What I think is interesting is that DeepSeek R1 came out probably just a few months before the Xanthorox AI tool came out, and this one is claimed to be privately hosted on its own infrastructure. So I was thinking like, how could they do that? And they're probably using maybe an open source LLM, and which one would be powerful enough to use? And I'm thinking possibly it's DeepSeek, but not verified. That's just my theory. But that one could be potentially a really interesting tool to develop exploit code. You saw that, it might have some capability there. There's some other custom built or claimed to be custom built LLMs on the dark web, or sometimes even on the, access through the clear web, in order to make scripts and, do those types of things. Some of that's overhyped and they're really just like chat GPT wrappers. And they're just trying to make a quick buck, basically. An interesting thing that I've seen a lot is just jailbreak techniques sort of just skyrocketing. There's tons of different ways in order to circumvent the ethical safety guidelines for commercial LLMs. And you really need a very powerful LLM to create working exploit code to create malware. So that kind of narrows the playing field a little bit. So we've seen threat actors from what I've seen, basically every major nation state group using jailbreak techniques in order to circumvent some of the safety protocols built into the LLMs. But when you look for solid examples of how this kind of like turns out in the real world, you don't really see too much. Sometimes it's used to write PowerShell scripts, to obfuscate certain payloads, that type of thing, but it's not like an autonomous agent basically at this point. There is a proof of concept piece of malware that is called Black Mamba, and it's not, in the wild, but basically it's polymorphic and it changes its structure, and it communicates with an LLM, I guess, in order to change some of the things that it does. So polymorphism, that type of thing has been around for a while. More of it's been sort of like built in, it's hard coded basically, but this is more dynamic and can use LLMs to get more capabilities. All right. I don't want to get too nerdy on it, but this slide is kind of like the more technical one. This one's kind of technical too, but there's not a whole lot of evidence of LLMs being used to create working exploits. There are a handful of examples. There's a quote down here by Matthew Keeley, who's the guy who actually demonstrated using GPT-4 to create an exploit for this SSH, this Erlang OTP vulnerability. And so that was before any public proof of concept was available. You don't see that too often, but as LLMs progress with their capabilities, I think we're probably going to see more one-off examples of this type of thing happening. I think a group of university researchers too also just looked at CVE descriptions in order to create proof of concept code. And it didn't work all the time, but in a good chunk of the tests that they ran actually did work. Usually you need to do a little bit of tweaking for it to actually work. So like that whole autonomous pipeline thing, I think is still a little bit ways off. And also that Xanthorox platform too claims to create vulnerabilities.
Hey Dave, there was a question about that Xanthorox. Did you come across any like indications that they're selling access to the model? Like they have pricing out there
Oh yeah.
or
You can basically just search in Google. It's search the name and find their website. Um, use a computer. I don't recommend everyone do this, but I use like a research computer that's segmented in order to access a site like this, and you can see like all the pricing details. It's very clear. And I think the person behind it is in Telegram, so that's where they kind of solicit or go through the sale process.
hey, one more question.
Yeah.
Are autonomous malicious AI agents on the horizon? Can we expect to see malicious AI agents widespread once AI agents become more common and cheaper to run?
I can't say it's not possible, but that's not where we are today. And I think we will have to do a couple technological pivots in order to get to that point. So there's the jailbreaking techniques to use commercial LLMs. So you need something powerful enough and something that isn't going to roadblock you as you try to create like payloads and things like that. So that's why I kind of focused on that Xanthorox AI platform as, it's privately hosted DeepSeek. So it's not commercially hosted. Um, there's no authority looking over kind of all of your requests and things like that. So open source models, I think, when they get more powerful like this, are really good potential ways to make these autonomous agents. But commercial ones can be used that way too. So I think maybe at least a year or so out, we'll see something more, but it's hard to tell. Anything else, Shawn?
No more questions. So just a reminder, if we go back to the poll answers, the top one was malware and autonomous exploitation, which you kind of talked about, and then AI generated phishing and social engineering was the second most popular answer.
Like this one.
Yeah.
This slide. Yeah, perfect. So this was like a really big theme, and I saw in the data over the past year or so, especially more recently. The screenshot you see on the top right is something that I've personally received, and probably many of you have received, but this is something that the Dracula phishing-as-a-service platform has been known to send out. And basically, they abuse iMessage and whatever the iMessage equivalent in Android phones is as well. And they actually don't get, I think they do this without incurring any fees, so they can do it at scale. And all it takes is a few people to actually comply with the request. And usually what they're doing is they're sending out these smish messages, and smishing is SMS phishing, basically, if you didn't know what smishing was. And they try to get you to go to their page, and it could be a complete clone of a legitimate site that we talked about before. This is the toolkit I mentioned, where you can take a link to a legitimate site and make a near perfect clone of it. So there's tons of targeting activity, tons of counterfeit domains associated with this group. The group is actually run out of China, the developers of this Dracula platform, and they're called the Smishing Triad. So it's just interesting. And I personally received this message, so I thought it was kind of like, oh, I want to see who these guys are. I want to shut them down. Unfortunately, those days are behind me. So, and then other types of AI weaponization that I've seen are using legitimate sites, trusted sites, in order to carry out campaigns. It could be to host a phishing page. That's what I saw with Gamma. Gamma is a legitimate, completely legitimate platform to create presentations using AI. But what that platform allows you to do is host sites. I think the TLD is gamma.app, but you can host phishing sites there. And because it's running on trusted infrastructure, it bypasses a lot of security countermeasures.
Yeah,
So
Dave, somebody chimed in on the chat saying that they've seen near perfect clones of their Okta site. Um, I mean, that's pretty scary, right? I mean,
yeah,
like that's access to everything.
I think that is a really concerning thing, because you don't have typical templates anymore. It's all super custom. So like the thing that traditionally separated APT groups from criminal groups was the amount of research and recon that will go into an operation. But now, because AI makes it so easy to do this work up front, more commodity criminals are kind of reaching a higher maturity, or the more effectiveness with their attacks, just because AI allows them to do so. So that's an interesting pattern. The bar is lowered, and then they're more likely to be successful too.
So
Uh,
Dave, so not to shift gears too abruptly, but at some point in time, I'm curious, like how would you go research some of this stuff in Feedly?
yeah, that's a great question. Let me see if I have any more here. Um, let me do this slide, and then
Okay.
I'll jump into the Feedly stuff, so I don't just keep switching back and forth. Um, that the last thing I kind of covered in depth quite a bit, and I'll just touch on, is using deepfakes and more sophisticated social engineering. This is, social engineering, phishing. This is the kind of stuff that AI is really automating right now. So Storm 1811 is a financially motivated group. You can see the insight card here in Feedly. So Feedly has these insight cards, which are basically like battle cards for different threat actors. You can see all the aliases here, but they're known to trick. They use vishing in order to get people to connect to Microsoft Quick Assist sessions, which is just allows them to like take control of the computer. So think like fake tech support scams, basically, is what this group is doing. But they'll actually use AI voice phishing, AI voice cloning potentially too.
Yeah, I thought
We
it was interesting that they would like send a bunch of spam to an account. So then you're seeing all this spam showing up in your account, and then here comes IT to the rescue, but it's not really IT, it's fake
yeah,
IT.
yeah. And that's, I hate to keep, say this. Whenever I used to do briefings, it's always like, educate users. And it really is true, because people should not just take calls and accept invitations to give access to their computer. Um, so that's something that you really need to socialize where you work, and hopefully you have a technical control that can kind of detect that stuff too, detect that network activity. But yeah, so that's really the main things with AI weaponization. Um, as I was doing this research too, a thing that really surprised me was this kind of coincided with identity-based attacks becoming more prevalent too. So a lot of the times, malware was the thing to look for. And I don't know how AI fits into it exactly, but credential theft has increased dramatically recently. And that allows attackers to actually log into, legitimately almost their legitimate sessions, but maybe from a wrong place. And so like identity-based attacks and having that type of monitoring in place can help address some of this stuff too.
Yeah, I read in one of the reports that the impersonation access has grown from about 45% in 2019 to 79% now. So meaning it's not a malware that they're using to get access. It's faking the help desk, or they're
Yeah.
getting people to give up their credentials through these different ways, and that's how they're getting initial access. So, certainly something to educate your users on, to be really
Yeah.
careful about that kind of
And
stuff.
exactly. So like what's easier to do, to write malware even with AI, or just ask for access, pretending to be someone. So that's kind of the bottom line. Yeah, and then the rest of this is going to be in Feedly. So we'll go into Feedly, and then it's hard with these webinars because sometimes they got like a mix of customers and then a list, some people that have never used Feedly before. So I'll try to like address both audiences if I can. So Feedly is really basically sort of a wrapper for the internet. It allows you to search and get insights from almost any article on the internet. We use AI to enrich all the content that we pull. And even if, say, there's a TTP mentioned, we're not looking just for the T code. We're actually looking for the context in the article that mentions how that technique is mentioned. So we're capturing all those variants and rolling it into an AI model that we can search for. Okay, so when you open Feedly, I'd say if you have like 5-10 minutes, regardless if you're looking at weaponized AI topics or not, the threat landscape is the first place to check. And this gives you a really good rundown on the trending cybersecurity articles. You can see the topics that are trending. You can even go into the topics and get the highlights from it and see what's going on. So that's a really interesting way to kind of, start your day if you just have a few minutes. But I want to focus on weaponized AI. So let's say that you're interested in Feedly or an existing customer, and maybe you want to think of some requirements, some intel requirements that can help you figure out what's happening in this space. So the way I like to kind of take a topic like this is think about it from the threat actor perspective. How are they attacking, what TTPs they're using, and then sort of look at deconstruct that a little bit into different requirements. So I already did a little bit of pre-work. So in Feedly, we have this concept called AI feeds, and they're not traditional RSS feeds. These are kind of focus queries that will capture any articles that meet your search criteria. And Shawn, do we have a question, or did you want?
There are a couple of questions. One specific to Black Mamba, and another one I'll just save for a second. So go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so we've got a few different things we can try in Feedly to sort of stay on top of a given topic. If you want to be very proactive and check Feedly every day, one thing you can do is build feeds. These are AI feeds that will look for things that map to your PIRs, your intelligence requirements. And so what I'll do is I'll just make a new one just to demonstrate how it works. And so what I'll do is I'll hit create AI feed. And then we've got different templates to help you start if you have nowhere to start, no idea how to do this. But since I'm a sort of a power user, I'll kind of just build it for you and show you how some teams might handle this. So what I'll do is start with a topic, and because it's weaponized AI is like the central topic. I'm going to just type in AI. And so we have an AI model that is developed that a machine learning team put together to track this topic. And so we have that. Now we're looking for any mention of artificial intelligence. And then we have another layer that we can add that will also look for certain other terms or kinds of things. What I'll do here is type in threat actors. And threat actors is another dedicated model. So any mention of a threat actor group, we have over 830 different groups that we have in Feedly. It's all synced with Malpedia and MISP and all their aliases too. So any co-mention of artificial intelligence and threat actors will bring up articles. What we'll do too is look for cyber attacks, because sometimes cyber attacks are unattributed. So I don't want just the ones that are labeled with threat actors. I want any kind of bad stuff. So I think this is a really good foundation for sort of a broad view on kind of how AI is used in cyber attacks. And what I'll do here is kind of show a couple things. We have different bundles, so you can pick different curated content that we update all the time. You can filter by only the most trusted sources of data. So I usually have that checked just to make sure that we're getting sort of the top content on the internet. And what I'll do is I'll save this. I think it's fine. Actually, before that, something that you can do that might be a surprise to some people who are customers that might have missed this announcement is we have a natural language filter. And so what you can do with this is get really into a nuanced topic by filtering, keeping articles that are only about what you care about, and you can write this in natural language. So what I can say is, like directly observed cases of AI use in cyber attacks. So I don't want just like, artificial intelligence, cyber attacks in the same article. I want this connection. So this is a really good way to focus the articles on that type of content. We can add that filter, and you can see it went from 44 to 6 articles per week. So that's a lot of noise that you can reduce. What I'll do here is save it. And actually, I'll just call this cyber attacks. I think I used that name already. Oh, I have to pick a folder. Nice AI. So you can organize all your feeds into folders. And we'll save it there. And now it's already curated content that we can digest. We can do that in a few different ways. So there's some upfront work if you want to do it this way and kind of like deconstruct your Intel requirements into different feeds. I've got one tracking for AI and malware. You can see how that's built here. If you hit the pencil icon, it's really the same type of query. I'm just swapping out the cyber attacks and threat actors with malware or things like that. And I do the same thing for all these different types of AI feeds. So in this one, we've got AI models for misinformation, disinformation, propaganda, that type of stuff. And then I think the most powerful thing on top of this is adding this natural language filter. So now that you have that, so what do you do with it, right? How do you get insights? So what I like to do is, let me see here. We can work at the folder level, which will roll up all the AI feed articles into a single place, and all the duplicate articles should be deduped. And so when you're on this, you can hit this Ask AI button. And this is a relatively new capability where you can select articles and ask questions with the articles as context. So in this one, you know what, I'm just going to group articles by theme and summarize. And as a suggested action. So if you don't have time to read all this stuff, you can really just get the themes and get the trends out of it. Because for me, like you get a lot of data to go through. And so this can save a lot of time.
And if you see something interesting, you can click on the reference and go to the article directly.
Yeah, a key thing is that some people ask, how do we make sure that the data is factually accurate and not hallucinated? Is we have strict controls to enforce citations in the results. So whenever you see a specific fact, you can see a citation to it and then go back into the article. And from here, you can read the whole article. We automatically highlight the most relevant sentences. And then at the top, you can see all the kind of metadata that we highlight that we look for. So here's a smishing triad, which I mentioned before. We can see the insight card for them. And so we're trying to capture the idea of pivoting in Feedly. So you do the research, you start broad, and then you can pivot into more interesting things. And so now we're on this basically a battle card for this group that's behind Dracula. You can see the article count. You can actually go and see the articles if you click on it here to see what the articles are. You can look at their TTPs in Attack Navigator. And it's a heat map. And then you can right click and then go directly to the article that will explain kind of what's behind that piece of evidence. So what we try to do is like keep things very transparent and not just like abstract things and not have evidence. You can also filter by time. So yeah, I mean, there's pew pew, there's a pew pew map, which I like to see, but I don't really use. And a mini TTP table. So you can see like what's trending, what TTPs are going up, what's going down. And this is relative to the time before this data was put together. So this is comparing it to the 6 months before this filter. All right. So definitely easy to get carried away. There's lots of rabbit holes to get into. The nice thing is that you really don't lose your place. You can just X out of what you pivoted into and go back to where you were before. I like the navigation quite a bit here. So we demonstrated like this Ask AI here. There's different things we can try. I think might be an interesting one is to show a custom prompt that we can do. So I'm going to go to hacking tools. And then when I hit Ask AI, what I'm going to do is expand the coverage of articles to get the maximum. And then I'm going to ask a custom question. And I'm going to ask it to just list off all the hacking tools mentioned and associate them with the threat actor group. So you can get, instead of you like doing the classic Excel spreadsheet and putting this together by yourself, this can save you a lot of time. And then these are all cited as well. And you can get a really good sense of what's happening. And you can copy the response. When you copy the response, it's all formatted as Markdown with the references intact. And you can copy it over into a Markdown editor and preserve that formatting. So that's using Ask AI sort of like multi-article level. You can also go into articles and do Ask AI directly in them. Like say, for example, this Fortinet Labs report came out, which I thought was interesting, but it's pretty long. What's the gist, right? So what I'm trying to do is maybe just summarize what's happened here. So a very high level view. You can also get more specific. So what I'll do is create executive level report or a cybersecurity report for an industry. I'm going to pick the finance industry. So now it's a more tailored report. And part of the promise with this presentation was that we're going to teach you how to like get actionable insights, I think, and how to kind of run with the data that you see. And so this is one way to do it. You can change the prompt. You can make a custom prompt if you wish as well. But that's one way to get reporting out of this. And real quick, I'm just going to jump out of these AI feeds and show you a brand new capability that we are soon to release. It's we just closed the alpha on this one, but it's our new search capability. And this is called Ask AI as well, but this is kind of like our next gen search. And so maybe you don't have AI feeds. Maybe you're just starting out and you have no idea where to look. You got an RFI, you need a quick turnaround, that type of thing. What you can do here is ask questions without really concerning yourself with article selection. And so I'm asking here, what are some directly observed examples of threat actors using AI for reconnaissance?
So what's it doing, Dave? Well, so how's
Answering
it
the
know what to
question.
search on?
What it's doing is it's trying to find the best sources. What it does is it basically takes this question and deconstructs it and tries to map it to our internal threat graph, which is our own proprietary data model, and then also combine that with sort of like a more advanced internet search of articles we've indexed. So once it does that, it gets the right sources, and then it tries to put together a response. So this is more like sort of fine-tuned for cybersecurity use cases. And you can see like, now you have a breakdown by nation state actors, what they're doing. You can get to the specific source article if you want more detail. So I actually use this quite a bit for this presentation. It's just like a crazy day and age we live in that you can just, do this type of research instead of just reading random articles on the internet. You can also copy these out. But yeah, there's this Ask AI capability isn't released yet, but it's we just closed the alpha. We can also do another search just to show it. How are North Korean hackers using AI? Super general. Maybe you don't know about all the stuff that they're doing. Even tells you like some of the tools that they use, face swap, voice altering software. So you get a lot more detail here. And this is kind of what I use to get like a really deep dive in certain topics, if you kind of don't know where to start.
Dave, there were a couple of questions.
Mhm.
One was more of like an opinion question. Will inception technique increase in the future or decline? Uh,
What, what,
the
what will?
inception technique?
Oh, that's just one example. I'm not sure if that's really trending or not. In media, it seems like everything's trending. So I don't um, uh, really like the skeleton key for LLMs.
Another one, as AI becomes used for more general fraud and scams, are there some non-commercial solutions for protecting the general public, such as the elderly who are higher risk to threat actors?
Such as the what?
Such as the elderly, so helping, general people that maybe aren't so computer savvy be able to respond to some of these things.
Yeah, it's tricky. I'm a big fan of nonprofit work for cybersecurity education, but sadly, like they're not funded very well. I used to do a lot of community outreach when I was at the FBI, and I used to talk to the elderly, used to talk to companies. And so it's kind of sort of a grassroots thing right now. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot of protection for non-commercial people out there, just regular people. That's kind of it doesn't pay a lot of money, unfortunately. So that's kind of the painful part of it. But you do what you can and share what you can with your family members, people you meet. That's the best I can say right now.
There was one more question. It was when you talked about Black Mamba, it was a little bit specific to Black Mamba, but does it have embedded malware that can dynamically run,
Yeah.
so
So
making
Black
it kind of
Mamba,
invisible almost?
yeah, Black Mamba is more of like researchers put that together. So it's not something in the wild as far as I know. It's something we can even ask AI if that works. We could I could do an unscripted question. Tell me about how. That's not really a question, but make sure it's
Uh-oh, you're testing our alpha live here. Looks like pretty interesting results, though.
So it says every time Black Mamba executes, it resynthesizes its keylocking capability, making each instance unique. Malware generates new unique code each time it runs.
That means like IOCs don't exist for this thing.
I mean, there's some behavioral stuff you could look at. I would probably like target like what distributes Black Mamba. That's how I would kind of try to detect it. But yeah, like once it's on the machine, it looks pretty difficult to find. It also, I think, transmits through Microsoft Teams. So you're seeing more like living off trusted sites as an exploit channel or as a communication channel. Yeah,
Dave,
it's a
you
good
want to
question.
also just check out the Black Mamba Insight card while you're here, if you
Yeah,
when you're done.
well, there we go. We could do that. Yeah,
So
so we got that.
yeah, very cool.
And real quick, Shawn, I just wanted to show there's one more thing that you can try. So say you don't want to get into Feedly and you want information pushed to you, what you can do is create a newsletter in Feedly. And I went ahead and created one. And what you can do is basically um, give all the AI feeds that you created, all of your requirements mapped to feeds, and make those as different sections. The really cool thing is that it can have an AI overview of the entire newsletter. So you don't have to sift through all the newsletter articles. You get the TLDR right away. So I'll just hit a preview and just kind of show you what if you got this type of stuff in a newsletter? What would that look like?
So not only are you using AI feeds to pull in all the news sources, you're using the newsletter to summarize all the content of the sources that are coming in.
Right. Right. And you can, I had a word limit. You can make it more detailed. You can make it more general. You can tell it, write it for a CISO, write it for a technical team, and it will adjust the content accordingly. But yeah, it even brought in the new Fortinet 2025 report.
From
So,
yesterday. Yeah.
yep,
All
that's
right, very cool. Well, we're at the end of the time. So thanks so much. Hopefully everybody got their questions answered. I think we answered all the questions that were online. Dave, thank you so much for all your expertise. One thing I want to mention is if you haven't tried a free trial of threat intelligence, again, this is just a 7-day trial, but if you want to extend it, you just have to, once you're in the trial, just reach out to sales and they can extend it for you. So feedly.com/threat-intelligence, and that'll get you started. So thank you everyone for joining, and see you on the next webinar.
Thank you.